Joining us now is another pro, Robin Washut from Husker Online. Robin, how are you this morning?
Doing well. How are you guys?
Robin, how are you? I haven't talked to you forever. How are things?
We're going all right. We're wrapping up spring ball. The portal is in full effect, so not a dull moment around here.
The wry chuckle gives me the chills, as if to say, "This dude is a ding dong. Why did he say that?"
Every day's a new adventure at this time of year.
You're like, yeah, you just never know what you're gonna get when I talk to old DB. I'm sorry. I just like to make our guests comfortable. Where do you want to start? You want to go hoops, or do you want to talk open portions of practice? Where would Robin like to start?
I'd probably have more tangible takeaways from basketball than I do
Okay.
with the 40 minutes of individual drills we've watched with spring football. So
Perfect. Let me ask you a hard-hitting question. Will Nebraska use all 4 remaining scholarships? No. I am kind of curious about that, though.
yeah, that's a good question.
What do you think they do with open slots? Because they could maybe fill 2 more. They don't have to fill them all. Do you think they bank them, or how do you think the roster fills out up until these 4 spots currently?
I mean, I think there's always if the right player comes at the right time and it just kind of makes sense, and then sure, you go ahead and fill it. But like anymore, I just don't personally, I don't see the value of having 13 scholarship players. Like, for one, you're just spending your time babysitting somebody that's probably going to get mad because they're not playing, and then you have to deal with their parents or coaches or whatever it may be that are like mad at you because their kids aren't playing, and it just becomes kind of this unnecessary chore that you have to deal with, and then 7 months later they're leaving the program anyway. So like anymore, like I think that you have, your probably 9 or 10 like kind of core scholarship guys that you build around, and if you can supplement that with another player or two, then so be it. But I almost see more value in having additional spot for just to have, in case something comes up at mid-year or even into the next recruiting class. But then also just kind of take that burden off your plate as a coaching staff of trying to keep 13 guys happy in an era where that's an impossible thing to do.
Robin, do you think there is any value to maybe using 1 or 2 of those spots as, I don't know if flyer is the right term, but sort of developmental projects where you're like, I'm not really sure if this guy can play at this level, but I kind of like the frame and think there's something there. Like, let's see. And that way you're not necessarily babysitting somebody with expectations to play right away.
Yeah, and I think that's what they did last year with like Matar Chope, and
Sure.
he's gone.
Yeah.
And like they took a kind of a developmental freshman guy, and like an Eli Rice, and he even played. Now he's gone, and so like if anything, maybe hold on to those spots and give a scholarship to a guy like Sam Hoiberg or Cale Jacobson, or somebody that's an important member of your program. Especially with a guy like Sam, he's a no-brainer, but like with somebody like Cale. Like, he's not going to play a whole lot, but like he's an important part of just the practice and what he provides to you on the scout team, but then also just from a culture standpoint, where he's buying into everything that you're doing. And again, he's a completely maintenance-free type player. Why not reward a guy like that if you have the opportunity to do so? So again, it's all year to year, player to player. Like, there's going to be situations where it makes sense to fill all 13, but I just think with the way that roster management is quickly heading in college basketball, I remember back when Tim Miles was here, he was a proponent to reducing scholarship numbers and having it take down to 10 just because of that same issue. And that was even before the portal and NIL. So anymore, I'm kind of more and more in that boat where it just seems like an unnecessary task to fill all 13 in an era where just keeping guys for multiple years is harder than it's ever been.
So, Robin, let me ask you something. Based on, it's not even so much about what's available versus what's needed. He got a lot of, Coach Schwaber got a lot of credit for the meshing of the pieces when he brought portal guys in and how the personalities allowed him to really flourish as a coach. Has he done it enough where we don't look at talent so much as fit, or is this still a deal where, all right, we've got a year and a half of you trending in the right deal. Let's see if you can still build on before we anoint. Yep. I trust the fact you know what you're looking for in the portal now when it comes to fit.
Right. I think he has built some equity there with what he's done the last two recruiting cycles. But I think that the goal is it's not just getting good dudes and high character players. Like, you got to elevate your talent. And so that's kind of the balance there where you want to continue that method of bringing in guys that fit the culture you've tried to build over the last two off seasons, while also upgrading the level of talent on your roster. So, with the guys they've brought in so far, I think that they all kind of fit their respective roles, and they certainly check all the boxes that they're looking for, is continuing this kind of culture rebuild. But I think that, the goal is to make sure that the guys that they're bringing in are better than the ones that either they lost or, the ones that, they're going to be playing alongside again. So it's still a process. I think they're going to try to look for some more, dynamic, day one starter level players that they can continue that, like I said, that correlating path of continuing what you've done while also making sure you're getting better players. And I think when you win, I mean, you can find really good dudes that are also really good players that is going to try to continue that trend in the right direction.
Robin, out of the three guys that have committed so far, Griffiths, Worcester, and Morgan, who do you think makes or has the best fit in terms of what Nebraska needed?
Well, how much of it has to depend on Matt's health too, if in fact he does have surgery?
Yeah, so that's kind of the big question mark right now, which we don't know. At this point, I'm expecting Rink to be back, but again, that's just part of the equation here. Like, he can come back, but how, if he requires surgery, how long is that recovery going to take, and what type of player is he going to be next season coming off that surgery? Is he going to miss time, and if so, how much time? So there's a lot of layers there, which makes a guy like Andrew Morgan really important, because those two have very similar skill sets offensively. Now, Morgan's not the shooter Rink is, but he is really good with the ball. He's a good passer. He's kind of just one of those smart players that can be the facilitator out of the post the way Rink was. So that, like, just having two of those guys is a really good luxury. But in the potential that you might have to play games or an extensive part of the season without Rink, having a guy like Andrew to kind of slide in there and fill that role is really important. So, I mean, that was a pretty critical addition, just, especially because of the unknowns around Rink right now. But then, they also lost their two best 3-point shooters, and probably maybe three of their best 3-point shooters with the add in Jamarcus Lawrence. So they needed perimeter shooting. And while Gavin Griffiths didn't shoot well really at all last season at Rutgers, he was a top 50 recruit for a reason, and regarded as one of the better 3-point shooters in the 23 class. And kind of towards the end of last year, started to find his groove a little bit. So he fills that void. And oh, by the way, he's 6'8" and long, and kind of does provides those mismatches that Fred likes to exploit in his system. So he checks a lot of boxes. And then with Worcester, he's a guy that started 101 games under Craig Smith. And if you're the lead point guard for a coach like that, you're going to bring a lot of intangibles to the table. And he's not the shooter that maybe some are looking for, but when you have an assist to turnover ratio like that, and you're just kind of one of those stable quarterbacks on the court, there's a lot of value in that regard too. That you lose Jamarcus Lawrence, and now you can have Bryce Williams play more off the ball, which I think is his kind of plays to his strengths more. And then you pair Worcester and Ulis, suddenly you got a really veteran backcourt. And how do you win in March? With talented bigs and veteran point guards. So in theory, Nebraska has now addressed both of those while also adding a high level shooter.
So I guess that answers my follow-up to that, was because I was going to say, hey, listen, I get Lloyd, I get Jop, I get Keita to some degree. I definitely get Wilcher. Lawrence surprised me a little. So my question was going to be, listen, with Lawrence's departure, do we assume that Ulis is the guy? And does Nebraska still need another backcourt mate?
They need a scorer. I think they're okay at point because Ulis is certainly going. If he's not a starter, he's going to play extensive minutes off the bench as that first lead guard off the bench. And you say the same thing with Raleigh. Like whoever starts out of those two, the other one is going to play a lot. So I don't know how much they can play together, just because neither of them are really dynamic shooters or anything like that. But both of those guys are going to, I think, lock down that lead guard role. So what they need now, you have Bryce Williams as kind of your go-to, scorer on the wing, but they need another one. They need more shooting. I think when you kind of see some of the names surfacing now, they were all in on front court guys, which they still are, but now you're starting to see names pop up with just kind of those go-to Casey type shooters that is, they got Griffiths, but they need more. Like I said, they lost 3 of their best 3-point shooters from last year. They need more firepower on the perimeter, especially going back to the ring conversation, if that element isn't there. So I would anticipate they're going to just get an elite level 3-point shooter. And then they need somebody that, along with Bryce, you can give the ball to when the shot clock's winding down, just go make a play. And so those are 2 priority spots in the backcourt. I don't think that they're going to need to get another, point guard type, because they have those 2. I mean, Sam Hoiberg can play that role. So, I mean, they've got options there, but they need more shooting, and they need more, just give the ball to a guy and let him go and get a bucket.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but when you say go get a score, is that kind of the same or not the same at all as if I asked you, how are they going to get more athletic on the wing? Because I still have that A&M game in my mind where it was athletically such a mismatch. Is that one and the same? Is that in addition to, is that different?
Yeah, I mean, you need to upgrade both. Like,
okay,
a 6-foot, 190-pound scorer is only going to take you so far. Like, there's certainly a need for that, but you saw that. I mean, if Nebraska wants to win at this next level that they came close to, that A&M game is still very much in the minds of a lot of Nebraska fans, and I'm sure that coaching staff, where they realize they need to get more athletic. And so, the guys they brought in, I don't know if necessarily athleticism is the first thing that comes to mind there. Certainly they all have that to a degree, but there was one player on the court last year that looked like he matched up with A&M, and it was Juwan Gary. And beyond that, there really wasn't much else. So they just need size, they need strength, they need athleticism, both on the wing, and I think they need to add it in the post too. I think that's another priority. Is you got kind of your skilled offensive big and Morgan. You need a kind of an enforcer type, because you lost Alec. You need that guy that's going to go clear out the paint, get a defensive rebound, and make people think twice about coming to the rim with blocking shots. And right now, that's a pretty big void. So I talk about the scoring needs on the perimeter. They still need some size, physicality in the post that can help them on both ends of the court against that type of athleticism they saw in the tournament.
So, Robin, when I hear you talk about, okay, they need to upgrade their shooting because obviously their top 3 shooters left, and the guys that they've got coming back aren't necessarily lighting the world on fire, or the guys that they've brought in from the transfer portal. But then you also tell me they need to upgrade their athleticism. That to me sounds concerning, because usually the thing that offsets a deficit in athleticism is shooting. Do you have any sort of level of concern that they're not going to be able to find that right match, kind of based on what they've constructed so far?
Well, and that's kind of the luxury of having 4 open spots, is you can address that in a lot of different ways. So I mean, like they can get their spot up shooter while also getting a kind of a lockdown perimeter defender. And that's the other thing with Worcester too. Like, I mean, he's a big boy. Like, he's 6'4", 200+ pounds. That was arguably Utah's best defender for the last 3 years here. So, I think they did address that in some regard, but they just need more of it. I think it's more, but it's like there's a void here. I think it's more about supplementing and continuing to upgrade, because the core roster they bring back, and plus the guys that they've added so far, I think Nebraska's got a pretty good start. Right now, the issue is they just got to kind of continue it. So it's, I wouldn't say level of concern, but there's still work to be done to address those remaining needs. And looking at the guys that they're in on, and the, I think from an NIL standpoint, they're probably as competitive as they've been in a long, long time, maybe ever since kind of the real start of the NIL era. And that's going to allow them to get their foot in the door with guys that fit that bill of all those different areas they need to address, in a way that, a year ago and certainly 2 years ago, they probably couldn't even consider, just because with the success comes more resources, and with more resources, suddenly you're a better recruiter.
Dipping and dapping with our man, Robin Washut from On 3. So we know what's happening. How about football here, Rob? Okay, you can laugh. That was kind of funny. Thank you.
Good.
So it's okay.
Just freestyling on us over here,
listen,
Robin.
I got it, Robin. This just in is
I
you've
just
known
bring
me
it
for
out
so
TV,
long.
that's
It's like I'm an odd duck, right? Novel. All right, but let me ask you this, Robin, because you guys are kind of you're on it. We know some of the rumor mills with the portal and in Nebraska, and some potential secondary targets, which at first blush you're probably thinking secondary. What? Like, aren't we good? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, I know.
Right. Number one, any generalizations we want to make in terms of what that means for current guys on the roster, or we just trust implicitly, hey, they know what they need, and maybe there will be some surprise portal additions or departures.
Yeah, I think that there's probably always that potential anymore. I think of the guys that, when you look at potential departures, just from the sound of things, I don't know if anybody's expecting any big guys, like any big names to leave. But again, you just never know in this era. Like there's zero surprises anymore in our portal world of collegiate athletics. So like you always kind of got to be prepared for that. But like I agree with you. Like secondary, like it seems like the last position they need to address through the portal, just because of the bodies they already have there and the talent that they seem to have there. But again, you also have to kind of be cognizant that if you see an opportunity to bring in a good player that you think is better than what you have, you got to go do it. Just because everybody's on a year-to-year deal here, and if you have the opportunity to get somebody that can make your team better and get you to where you need to go, that's kind of the cost of doing business. But at the same time, it's got to be the right guy, especially if you're taking him this late.
Yeah.
Like you're missing all spring ball. Like he's got to be somebody that doesn't have a lot of catching up to do. So that's kind of the one caveat when you look at some of the portal names. I just don't know how aggressive Nebraska is really going to be. They might be putting out feelers and just kind of checking in on guys in case they have some unexpected departures. But I just don't anticipate a lot of like significant movement, both with big names, so to speak, leaving, and then like high profile additions through the portal post spring. I think they want to try to keep this thing as close to intact as they can, but you also got to make sure that you're prepared in case the unexpected happens post spring ball.
I told Ravi, I said this tongue in cheek, but now with kind of this stuff, it's got me wanting to revisit my own thought, even though it was kind of half-wit at the time. I said, this strikes me as this was on the heels of Coach Rule talking about the portal and this, that, and the other. And I said, this strikes me as the type of year with so many guys clumped together. I could see players leaving, not because of anything monumental, but just because there isn't enough separation, right? People get impatient. So I'd say, maybe people would leave, but it's not because of anything earth-shattering like this, that, or the other. It's just, listen, man, we're three redshirt juniors or COVID year sophomores, or because I look at wide receiver, it's clogged like that. I look at defensive backs, it's clogged like that. You may just get offensive. Oh, I was just getting ready to say that, where guys could just say, you know what, like there isn't enough space in, but not to go all Dave Matthews, but like space between, right? It's just like we got to do something different.
Yeah, no, I do think that, and now with the players having more leverage than they've ever had in the history of college sports, like why would you blame them? Why would you want to be in a 4-player committee at your position when you can go somewhere else, make maybe not as much or at least close to the same NIL and have a defined starting role. Like, I mean, that's the opportunities that players have now that, you know, on paper, like you want to treat it like a video game where you have this just like a bunch of depth of 80 and 90 rated players, but like it just doesn't happen anymore. Like that's it's just really hard to do now. And so, yeah, I agree with you that, I mean, though if there are kind of unexpected departures, that's going to be the type of player where
that's what I think.
A saturated position that, you know, you're disappointed to see him leave, but it's going to be it's going to be deals where like you can understand it. Like they're going to go somewhere where they can play and have an opportunity to do what they want to do on the field.
If I mean like even if it's just guys with similar skill sets. Like if I'm a slight twitchy wide receiver, because it's not just the positions, it's like it's the specifics within the position. If I'm a slight DB and I'm playing for corner, how many other slight DBs are there? Like I want something in the secondary that's a set apart. If I'm a wide receiver, I want to be the 6'4" guy that's 190. There's only a handful of those, right? So it could just be like, I don't know if I can distinguish, if I'm distinguished enough. And there's nothing like that's not an indictment. It just is what it is, because Coach Rule said he's letting us know whether you come or whether you go, I think we're going to be okay. It's up to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, I think that's kind of how you got to approach this. Like guys are going to leave, but like, you just got to understand that for one, they're probably leaving for a reason as far as what their role is going to be at Nebraska. And then two, you kind of got to just understand their situations, that especially with not just multiple guys at their position, but with multiple guys in the same class. Like that's going to be the same deal for the next 2, 3, 4 years, where, you know, you're in that kind of same role where there's a group of you all doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. And if you want to truly separate, it's going to be really hard to do it in Nebraska. So it's kind of the world of roster management in basketball and football and across the board, where, you know, you just got to accept that there's going to be turnover. Even if there's guys that you want to keep around, they probably want to stay around. Sometimes it just makes sense to turn the page and find other opportunities.
That's Robin Washut, Husker Online. Robin, we appreciate your time, and hopefully we will catch up again soon.
Thanks, Robin.
Absolutely. Good talking to you guys.